Hey there, and hope you're having a good day. Thanks for selecting our presentation. My name is Jessica Stack, and with me today is Colin Cooper. And we're going to be discussing the City of Grand Rapids Cityworks Mobile deployment for the MobileGR Department. And first, we'll go ahead and kick off some introductions. So, Colin, if you'd like to kick us off here.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Again, my name is Colin Cooper. I use he, him pronouns, and I serve as the Information Systems Coordinator for MobileGR, which is our parking services and signals and signs department here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I've lived down here for over a decade now after growing up in the northern part of the lower peninsula of Michigan, if you're familiar with our geography here. I, in my free time, play folk music here around the area. Like to go biking with my wife and follow our local soccer team, GRFC. I also am finishing out my bachelor's degree for IT project management at Davenport University, and am very happy to be here with Jess and our partners at Power Engineers.
Thanks. We're glad to have you. All right, again, my name is Jessica Stack. I'm a senior consultant with Power Engineers. I've been with Power since 2012 and in Cityworks Consulting since roughly 2010, 2011. I have two beautiful girls, so naturally I have no pictures of my husband and I anywhere, so I have to scrounge to find those. But we love just having a good time together and going to the beach and bike rides and just spending as much time outside as possible. So we just like to enjoy each other's time. All right, so presentation overview, just to give you an idea of all that we're going to cover today. Colin's going to discuss the City of Grand Rapids and fun little tidbits about the city, and as well as the project background. And then I'll get into the technical aspect of the Cityworks implementation for MobileGR. And then Colin will review maybe some future goals and next steps, and then we will conclude. Colin, if you want to go ahead.
Sure. So I'd love to tell you a little bit about our city here. Grand Rapids is the second largest city in Michigan after Detroit, obviously. As of the 2019 census estimations, we believe we have around 200,000 residents who live in the actual city limits, as well as about 1 million total that live in the greater metro area of several suburbs and smaller towns within Kent County around us here. We were famous back in the early 20th century for being the furniture city of the U.S. We were able to transfer lumber down the Grand River to all of the factories and places that would create beautiful furniture. Now we're better known as the Midwest beer city, with lots of breweries such as Founders, Brewery Vivant, New Holland Brewery. So we like to have a lot of fun downtown, is what I'm saying. And it's also important to note that the area where Grand Rapids is set now is a place that was historically inhabited by First Nations Native people here in the U.S., the ancient Hopewell tribes, as well as the Ottawa, Chippewa, and Potawatomi tribes here more recently. It's a beautiful city. If you ever get the chance to come, I definitely recommend taking a day or two to just travel around, see all of the art that we have in our downtown area. We host 2 different festivals every year. Festival of the Arts in the spring, where we showcase a lot of local musicians and organizations, sell lots of festival foods and that kind of thing, as well as Art Prize, which happens every other year in the fall, where submitters can present their different pieces in hopes of winning the Art Prize at the end of the event. And then we also have a lot of other smaller festivals, such as Laugh Fest, which is a comedy festival that takes place in March. And throughout the summer, lots of downtown gatherings and activities. So it's a very beautiful place. If you ever get the chance, recommend it.
It is very cool. Yeah, our prize was amazing when we were there, and I would love to see the Laugh Fest. That sounds like such a good time.
Absolutely. To get into some of the project background, so the city of Grand Rapids as a whole has been using Cityworks for quite some time now. Many of our departments use it for tracking assets and maintenance and service requests that come through our 311 customer service department. Everything from our cemeteries to traffic safety. They use it to manage inventory using storeroom, employee time tracking, and it's also configured and maintained internally by a team of information system coordinators like myself and our central city IT department. Now, several years back, MobileGR was not as big as it is now. We were just parking services. We eventually were combined with what was our lighting signals and signs department, who were already using Cityworks. The parking services portion was not. So as we came together to become MobileGR, which is much more of a, mobility and transit focused department overall, we saw the need to bring the parking services side up to speed with the Cityworks software, which is when we partnered with our good friends Jess and Peter at Power Engineers to build out the new domain for parking services. And we wanted to push the bar a little bit and move to the mobile version of the Cityworks application, just because most of the parking services folks were already carrying either a cell phone for parking enforcement or meter service or an iPad. So we saw an opportunity there to kind of expand what the city was doing overall and bring ourselves into that alignment with the other departments. So the areas that we ended up being able to implement were the parking facilities maintenance. These are the folks, most of them who work overnight, who go around to the different parking facilities, the ramps, surface lots, etc., and make sure that there are no electrical problems, there are no messes around the ramp, everything is safe and clean. The second was the parking access revenue control systems, which for those of you in the parking industry, we call the parks equipment. So we have implemented Cityworks to track those assets, the gate arms when you enter and leave a ramp, the payment machines, that sort of thing are all rolled into this domain now. As well as just some general preventative and standard maintenance on our service technologies, and the meter service work group, which travels around and fixes any issues with our single stall meters and our kiosk meters for our pay-by-plate zones.
Great. Thanks, Colin. Awesome. Yeah. All right, so now I'll get into the technical configuration of the project. So for those that may not be familiar, and Colin touched on some of this as well, typically I would say most folks are familiar with the term parking garage or something to that effect. In Grand Rapids, it's called a ramp or parking ramp. So when we talk about the ramp inspections and things like that, we're talking essentially about the that translates to parking garage. So I wanted to make sure to mention that early on in the presentation. And our implementation covered the whole MobileGR department, except for the meter reading side of things, the folks that are checking each of the meters and making sure that they're paid and current and things like that. So we did cover operations, maintenance, and security, and we implemented service requests, work orders, and inspections. And the service request, things like a problem with the meter, if it's not reading time, if it's not returning a receipt, or if it took too much change, that kind of thing. And then things like, general customer complaints, sign damage within the ramps, some work orders to address the utility issues like electrical, plumbing, lighting, that kind of thing that might be going on in the ramp. Some of those are handled by outside contractors. So the work order in that case is created at least to track that there was an issue, and then also have a place to put that contractor correspondence when they've completed their work. So lots of different service requests and work orders that we implemented. And then we also did a tabbed XML interface just to help with that user navigation on the Office side. And primarily, the folks using Office were really just the managers as a way to follow up on those activities being done in the field. The major component of the project was really that Cityworks Mobile piece. Even some of the managers may use it from time to time just to see what's going on, but really primarily the managers are using Office, the Office side of things, and then everything else is being done in the field in that Cityworks Mobile app. And there were a few considerations that we needed to make to determine that Cityworks Mobile was going to be the best solution as well. The downtown area itself really doesn't have issues with cell signal, even with some of the tall buildings and stuff. It's pretty good. I haven't had any problems, myself. But when you get into the ramp itself, obviously under several floors of concrete, then that begins to pose a problem. So we didn't want them to lose connectivity while they were there doing the work and things. Because as Colin said, I mean, they're there at 2 o'clock in the morning, and let's keep it as easy as possible, really, was the overarching goal. Keep it as easy as possible for everybody involved. And, as a general rule, the easier the end users find it, the easier the acceptance is typically, right? So, so we could spend all day talking about all the different facets of the project and things, but what we do want to focus on are some of the inspections that we did, and we'll touch on a few of them in a live demo today as well. Before we get started, I wanted to make sure to distinguish the difference between some of the inspections. So we did a few linear inspections, but mostly branching inspections, and these are the two types of inspections that Cityworks offers. And the difference being a linear inspection is basically a reproduction of your paper-based form. So if you are taking a piece of paper out in the field and you have some observations or some notes jotted down and you're entering a response for each observation, that can basically be reproduced into a linear Cityworks inspection, to where it's just this digital interface now, and you can either select the right response if it's something that can be predefined, or you can type or even speak your response into the field if you're using a like tablet or cell phone. So the branching inspection allows you to be a lot more dynamic with your inspection. And the way I often describe it is kind of like a determine the ending story. So the branch, the question that it presents to you is directly related to the result you've just selected. So it's kind of like those determine the ending stories where you're presented with a fork in the road, and if you go down one path, then you defeat the witch, and if you go down another path, then you save the princess or something, but it's, you get to choose the next step, basically. And that's the same premise here, is that depending upon the result you choose, that can fire off a follow-up observation. It gives you that dynamic nature there, basically. So let me go ahead and just switch slides here. So I'm going to be showing you this on my phone, so I'll be glancing down occasionally, not ignoring, just demonstrating. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this up over here. Okay. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and find our Mobile 8. Okay, so here is Grand Rapids. My session has probably timed out, so. Okay, let me go over here to this one, actually. All right, so we have a inspection for the Ottawa Fulton ramp, basically. And this is one of the maintenance ones that would be done real early in the morning. And the interesting thing about these inspections is that they varied very slightly, but each day of the week. So for example, Monday's inspection on the Ottawa Fulton ramp may be focused on like the southeast and maybe northwest sides of the building, but then on Tuesday there would be like the north and the southwest side or something like that. There would be a few differences here and there, and it wasn't so similar that you could combine things, you know, and or repurpose fields or rename the terminology or something. It really was its own, you know, 5 separate inspections. And the bonus of the branching inspection is that we were able to take one different inspection that was done 5 days a week and combine it into one without losing the integrity of the inspections that take place each of those days. So we went from having the potential of hundreds of inspection templates down to roughly like 20 or so. And if you can imagine, you know, someone in the field on a mobile device trying to sort their way through roughly 100 inspections, I mean, that would just be a nightmare and just totally unusable. You know, I mean, that would just not work at all. So, so each of these varies, some more than others, and some only slightly. But I'll just kind of walk through some of this for you. So, if I select Monday, for example, then the next observation that's presented as clean area by employee entrance. So I'll just kind of step through some of these and hit OK. Southeast stairs, clean windows, southeast elevator, southwest stairs. So you can kind of see. And then if I were to go back and change the day of the week, for example, some of the observations will be similar. For example, we do have, you know, this one, clean area by employee entrance. That one may be done every day regardless, but then from there you can see the observations change a bit. So whereas in the previous it was southeast area, now I'm on the north side. And again, so this slight variability, you know, really is significant, and we were able to maintain those differences in the inspections through that branch, and that was very, very useful.
I think one of the really important things about this branching system too is that we took these teams of folks who had never used Cityworks before, and Jess and her team were able to present these inspections in a way that was logical, followed what they were already doing, and didn't create a bunch of extra work. It kept the barrier to entry low for them, and it's been a fantastic element for their teams.
Thanks. Yes, definitely. And along that same vein, something to note as well, the inspections were all named according to the building that the inspection was going to take place on. So it's very easy to find the right one, as well as if someone is out sick, you know, and someone has to stand in for that person, it's really easy for them to pick up where they left off, because they're just following the prompt. Basically, all they have to do is know the name of the ramp that they're in, which they typically do, and select the template, and then just select the day of the week, and everything is branching based upon that day of the week. So that was very beneficial. And then here with the pay-in lane, so for those that may not be familiar, a pay-in lane is basically the little pay station where you insert your card when you're leaving the ramp, and then the payment forces the gate to come up so that you can leave. It's probably intuitive, but just, you know, for sake of being thorough, that's what we're looking at here. So the pay-in lanes were inspected twice a day by the security folks, and each ramp had at least one, maybe 3 pay-in lanes. And some would let out at different sides of the building. So for example, at Ottawa Fulton, there may be one that lets out on the Ottawa side of the road, and then on the opposite side of the building, there might be one that lets out on the Fulton side, just, you know, as an example. And then in cases where, like say there's a big concert or a big event, they will take one of the incoming lanes and make it an outgoing lane. So instead of having one outgoing lane, now you have two outgoing lanes, just to help with traffic flow, obviously. And so we were able to capture that as well here. So if I'll just kind of step through that. Okay, so I'll just select the Ottawa Fulton again. And you see we have, in this case, we had one inspection template where we captured each of the parking ramps and also some lots that are nearby some of the ramps as well. So the user can select what area, what lot, what ramp they're at, and then they'll be prompted with the pay stations that are at that location, that location specifically. Instead of having to sort through a long list of all of the pay stations, it's just limited to that one building. So we're also limiting the amount of potential user error when we're going through these entries. And then as well, if there's any issues with some of these pay stations or paying lanes, you can determine which ones are visited more often, which ones may be, spawning work orders and things like that, because we have this predefined response here. So, we don't have to worry about any manual entry and something being spelled wrong or, something like that, or somebody got a number backwards, so it's just kind of helpful there. And then security will note things like their arrival time, things like that. And actually, let me go back over here and just to show you what another one might look like. So you can see here the Monroe Center. We have it narrowed to just there, what's at Monroe Center. So just a glimpse there into what we did over at Grand Rapids, and go ahead and discontinue that now. Okay. All right, and we'll go over next steps and long-term goals. Colin, if you'd like to kick that off.
Absolutely. So now that we have these built out, right, we've kind of invested some time training and having the teams test out the systems. Our next kind of goal as we grow into this on the parking side for MobileGR is to include more of the enforcement staff. So while our enforcement staff has always done kind of the downtown and business districts on street enforcement, we have recently taken over doing some of the residential parking enforcement as well from the GRPD, who are no longer going to be doing it. So what this means is building out ways for those enforcement folks to flag in Cityworks and say, hey, this meter is, not working correctly. Could we get someone out for meter service to take a look at it? That sort of things. As well as partnering with our close friends over at The Rapid, which is our local bus transit provider. Grand Rapids, we actually have purchased a few buses that travel around the downtown and main thoroughfare areas where you can ride much of the city for free on what we call the Dash in partnership with The Rapid. So managing some of those assets that we have already tagged in our GIS systems within Cityworks is definitely one of the goals that we'd like to expand to. So once again, we just want to say huge thanks for coming to check out our presentation. And I would love to thank Jess and the team at Power Engineers, not only for inviting me to take part in this with them, but for all the great work they've done. This has been a fantastic tool for us, and we're very excited to see how we can expand and grow this partnership in the future.
Thanks, Colin. The feeling is mutual for sure. We've enjoyed working with you and the rest of the Grand Rapids team. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to contact myself or Colin. And hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and have a great day.
Thank you.